welcome back. One of the controversial areas in this is that the Republicans think that Mark here is a Governor Cuomo man. And we reached out to Political Buzz contributor Carl Palladino for a comment.
Oh, I think Mark Grisanti's had his day in the sun. He made a big mistake. He was a freshman senator, and he allowed some of the more seasoned senators to convince him that he had to go and give his vote to Andrew Cuomo. Why? Because they told him to do that. That was Dean Skelos, George Maziarz, and Libous, the three leaders of the New York Republican caucus, who wanted to be complicit with Cuomo, but they didn't want the people to know about it. So it was no big hidden secret that they compelled Grisanti to go and give. He was one of the four that gave his vote for the gay marriage issue. It wasn't a matter of the gay marriage issue. Most people could give a hell, okay? Live and let live, and that's been my attitude, and that isn't the important thing. It was the fact that he went back on his word. And when you don't have a backbone, and you don't have a commitment, when you sell the people something, you can't evolve in your thinking later on. You better be honest to yourself and honest to those people that put you in office, or they're going to put you out of office, as they finally did.
Well, Mark, one of the things, that's kind of an interesting comment from Carl, and I've talked to politicians, candidates before, and one of the things that's always been interesting to me is the way things work once you get elected. If you are a Republican or a Democrat with the best of intentions going into office, it seems to me that the very first thing that happens when you get to Albany or to Washington is they kind of pull you aside and they say to you, this is how things work. You vote the way we tell you to vote, you say what we tell you to say, and if you behave yourself, then we'll help you along. You can, maybe get your own bills passed. Right. But if you don't do what we want you to do, if you don't toe the line, then we're going to sit you in the corner, and when it comes time for re-election, we're not going to help you. We'll help your opponent, and you'll never be heard from again. So if you have the best of intentions, if you really want to do good, and you're a candidate who's been elected, is that the way it happens, and how do you fight that?
That's absolutely not the way it happens, and I've told Carl this numerous times that unequivocally nobody told me to sit there and vote a certain way. I'm my own person. I know what I'm doing with regards to these votes, and those are votes that I took. Nobody told me, hey, you must vote this way, or else, you're not going to get the help. It's interesting because, again, what Carl's talking about is about a social issue. What I'm talking about is where the bill stood, as I talked about previously, where the bill ended up being. If Carl and others out there do not like that reasoning and they feel that people force me to vote, they're entitled to their opinion, and that's why this country is great. But the bottom line is, those are social issues. I'm talking about the economies of Western New York right now are moving so far forward where they've been stagnant for decades and decades, where you have cranes in the air. That's what I'm focusing on, is keeping taxes low, bringing jobs here, and making sure that people move back here. In this past year, we have an influx of people moving back in Erie County. We have unemployment that went from 8.8 to 6.2%. So if Carl and others, don't agree, and we could agree to disagree on that issue, on marriage equality, on the SAFE Act, but you definitely cannot argue against me of the fact of the resources that I've been bringing to my district, whether it's Orchard Park, Hamburg, Tonawanda, Grand Island, Buffalo, all of those areas, the resource that I'm bringing, that's what matters to people. What matters to people is that their grandkids and their kids are staying here. What matters to people is that the jobs are now coming back. The price of realty is skyrocketing. The tax base is going to start going lower. We have a property tax cap in place. We've done legislation that's going to help people prosper and stay in Western New York. So when individuals say that I was, told and forced to vote a certain way, that's absolutely not true. And Carl's the first one that's out there, and he calls me a rhino, so on and so forth. But you know what? And I'm not going to get into bashing Carl, but there are things that Carl has done or things that other people have done that people would consider them a rhino just as much as people might consider me a rhino. The point is, I'm fighting, I'm doing the best that I can for my district. I believe I've been doing that for the last 4 years. I want to continue doing that, because if this seat is lost, this isn't about Democrat versus Republican in Erie County. This is about downstate versus upstate. If this seat gets lost, I fear it's going to be a huge, huge detriment to Western New York, and a lot of these resources, capital improvement projects that I've been bringing here are going to be gone, and all that money is going to go downstate.
Well, now in a time when you're campaigning, the things that tend to garner most attention are those social things that you talked about, the
Right.
SAFE Act and the gay marriage and so on. Those are the things that command the attention, and it gets people talking about the relationship with Cuomo, because most of the things, those social, the high-profile things, you voted on something that would go with what Cuomo desires. What's your relationship with the governor?
Well, there are issues that I have voted for the governor that not only did I vote, but also Republicans voted for, Democrats voted for, both in the Assembly and the Senate. And there are also things that I voted against, measures that individuals wanted, whether it's in the Assembly, the Senate, or from the second floor. So it's not, what people say as far as like, oh, you're a puppet, you're this, you're that. It's to me, it's just rhetoric. What people need to focus on in Western New York is the optimism and the feeling of positiveness and what is going on in Western New York in this area. That's what people need to focus on in this race. They need to look and see how Buffalo and Western New York and their region is growing. They need to look and see and talk to their supervisors, talk to their mayors about the resources that I have brought to the districts that are actually saving them tax dollars. That's what they need to focus on, because as I said, we could agree to disagree on certain social issues, but when it comes to being able to thrive in an economy and be able to stay here, that's what people need to focus on, and that's where I'm focused on in this area, is continuing to do that for the next 4 years. And I have a great record of doing that on the economic side, on the environmental side, and moving forward. And I'm going to continue in that fashion, and I hope to continue in that fashion.
Let's talk a little bit about that backroom politics that we mentioned before. The primary was coming to a close, and the teachers' union spent an enormous amount of money for your opponent.
Right.
But not your Democratic opponent.
Right.
It was a primary. They spent money for your Republican opponent.
Right.
What did they hope to accomplish, and how is that going to, right now, what position does that put you in? Because now you're running against a Republican and a Democrat. That's going to split the vote all kinds of different ways.
Right.
How's it going to affect everything, and why did they do that?
What people don't realize is NYSET came in, a far, far left group came in who is backing Mark Panapino. NYSET and Vote Cope are the same people, okay? They come in, and it was over $300,000 in attack ads that then helped out the primary challenger that I had, who I think is to the far right on a lot of issues, Kevin Stocker. So you basically, even though they were going to back Mark Panapino, so they did that to try to knock Kevin Stocker out of the, or try to knock me out of the race, which they did in the primary, but I'm still here on the independent line. So I consider myself a moderate and fiscally conservative. But you have somebody on the far right and somebody on the far left. That's where I am now, as an independent candidate that is going to try to continue to bring these economic resources here to Western New York. And there are strong issues that I am against. I mean, if the Democrats take this seat, they're going to want to have illegal immigrants get driver's licenses, or the right to tap into TAP, that's known as a DREAM Act. There's a whole host of things that I see on the horizon that will not be good if the downstate Democrats get this seat. On the other side, my Republican primary challenger, who was, as you said, offered to be here today, has never stated his position on an issue. He's never stated where he stands on marriage equality. He only recently became members of the NRA, because what he's doing is he's taking issues that he sees that voters don't agree with me on, and he's adding fuel to the fire. He said, I took money from Tonawanda Coke. I never took money from Tonawanda Coke. He said, I went to Governor Cuomo's fundraiser. Never went to Governor Cuomo's fundraiser. He himself applied for the Working Families line, which is the same people to the far left. So how could he be a Republican and then still try to get for the Working Families line? It doesn't add up. So something behind the scenes was going on with regards to those the primary race, and it's not going to faze me. I'm going to continue to push forward. I'm going to continue my quest to maintain this seat for the residents and the people here of Western New York and move forward.
Well, they certainly accomplished their goal
Right.
of splitting the Republican vote up. Now, how does this, with the way you voted, being a former Democrat, being a Republican, holding the seat, where does that leave the vote? How is the vote now going into the election going to be split up?
What I asked the voters to do is I asked the voters to look at the economy and what is happening here in Western New York. That's what I'm asking the voters to do. If you disagree with me on the social issues, I understand that, but you have to look at the bigger picture as to where we're going. I think that what's going to happen is that people are going to see the economic realities. People are going to talk to their mayors in their villages and their towns and their supervisors. People are going to talk and say, hey, has Mark Grisani brought resources here to Western New York? And they're going to tell them absolutely, and they're going to say, and it's never been done in the past. They're going to see that the unemployment rate has dropped. They're going to see that there's thousands and thousands of jobs available. The Buffalo Niagara Medical Corridor, that was my legislation, the beginning phases of UB 2020 that morphed in New York SUNY 2020. Numerous environmental bills. It's all about jobs and keeping taxes low, and I've delivered in that respect each and every year with the legislation that I have. So yes, there are going to be Republicans that aren't going to vote for me. There are going to be Democrats that aren't going to vote for me. But I think there's going to be Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and some conservatives that are going to recognize and say, you know what, Mark is fiscally conservative. You know what, Mark has brought resources here. And I don't know where these other two stand because I don't know what any other positions are. So I just ask people to do their homework and look to see where things are right now and if they feel Western New York is moving in a positive direction, because I sure see it, and a lot of family and friends and people that I talk to say it is moving in a positive direction. If you don't think it is, vote for my opponent. If you think it is, then I ask for your support.
Okay, well, we're about to wrap this segment up. It's one of the most interesting races in the history of Western New York, I think. We'll be back in a minute to wrap it up.